Hello again, Broncos country.
Really excited to chop up some Broncos with you all this week.
Bourbon, Broncos, and no BS.
Orange
Time, your favorite time of the week. We're not for the Raiders, Chargers, or Chiefs. So grab your brews and your fantasy league. We've got that blue and orange blood that you bleed. Like Lindsay, Sutton, and Judy. We are that Mile High Broncos country.
Orange Weekly, fans, brews, and Broncos news. Hey, Broncos country, how you doing? Kev Dan here for another episode of the Orange Weekly Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS show. Glad you're all here tonight. We got Jared, David, John, and myself here to break down all the post-draft talk, as well as all the other rumors, the news from today about our offensive line woes. And whenever there's an injury, it's always a good time to bust out a little drink with some friends there. So just make sure you all are drinking responsibly. Don't drink and drive. But let's kick back, relax, and talk about some Broncos football. So lots to talk about, obviously. Jared, let's have you start off, man. What you got?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about a lot today. The biggest thing on everyone's mind is the news that happened today. Juwan James getting injured off practice field, not in Colorado, which is a huge thing. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit as far as what that means for the Broncos offensive line, what we're going to do with him, and what that means for our money. But obviously, the draft. I think the draft, we had a pretty successful draft. So I'm excited to talk about that with you guys.
John, what do you think, man? You weren't here for the draft show we did.
I wasn't. I was
sad
in Florida. Yeah, I was out in Florida for a wedding. Had a good time. Enjoyed the beach, but was still watching the draft. Watched you guys. Loved it. Great show. But no, it was a very interesting week since we last talked. A day later, we got our backup quarterback, and then from there, we all know what happened. Obviously, the draft and all the Rodgers rumors and all that stuff that we'll get to. So it was a fun week of football for it being in the off season.
Yeah, pretty wild. And it's maybe just a prelude of things to come. We're certainly not going to see the Rodgers rumors die before June 1st unless something, concrete happens before that time. So, it's going to be kind of a fun summer for Broncos fans. It's like Manning watch, except we get weeks of it instead of days. And that could be, really, really fun or really, really not fun.
Right.
But yeah, looking forward.
It's just funny that we know that nothing's happening before June 1st, and everyone is going to lose their minds for the rest of this month until we figure out something.
Absolutely.
It's just begging for the content. Jerry, Nick, thank you guys so much. And yeah, obviously we're looking at the Aaron Rodgers watch 2021. So
yeah, right.
Is it? You know what? So I think to really start thinking about this Rodgers thing, it's great to think about, well, what is it going to take for us to get him, right? And so I'm just going to pull this up because I want to hear your thoughts, and everybody who's watching right now, I want to hear your thoughts. Here are 4 potential trade offers to land Aaron Rodgers. So let's talk about them, guys. See which ones you like. Are you willing to even give up this much for Aaron Rodgers? Keep in mind he has 4, maybe 5 years, more than likely left to play. So, I think we talked about this a little bit before the show, and I think, David, you're the one that said, look, all of these, you're giving up 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers. So right off the bat, any other player aside, you're already looking at that.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Giving up 3 first-rounders sounds great for the guy, but I don't think they're in a position, they being the Green Bay Packers, are in a position to make a deal or make demands when the guy wants out, and they don't want him out. So, I mean, they're obviously they're gonna pull a couple first-rounders and probably a couple, and I think it's gonna be more than just one player. I think we're probably looking at, a Drew Lock or a Teddy Bridgewater and either a Von Miller, or another name that's been thrown around is if we trade off Bradley Chubb.
Yeah.
So talk about Bridgewater, Chubb, a couple first rounders is another thing that's been kind of thrown around, but it really depends on what we want to give them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And if we're giving up this much, that means we got into a terrible bidding war with someone else. That's the only way I see us giving up this many picks plus players. Obviously, Drew Lock in any package makes sense since we're not going to keep him around with the Rodgers. And maybe Von Miller even, although I know that's going to break David's heart, but he's coming at the end of his career. So I think all these would kind of honestly be bad scenarios if we're mortgaging the entire future just to get Rodgers for a guy that, like you said, is only going to be around for maybe 4 or 5 years. But that being said, this makes us an instant contender if it does happen to go very deep in the playoffs. So
absolutely.
And I'll tell you, I think what I see is the most realistic of these from Denver's point of view is offer 2. Like, I can see 3 first-rounders and a young player like Sutton or Chubb, but I think that would probably be the upper limit of compensation of what the Green Bay could reasonably expect. The problem to me is, even though the Raiders don't have like the cap space to actually get Aaron Rodgers, it's not something that I can put past John Gruden, like in any way, shape, or form, just because it's John Gruden. So to me, that says you may actually end up in a little bit of a bidding war with somebody. We know, it came out again today. The Broncos are reported to be the most interested team out there, but it just takes one crazy offer from one crazy GM. So right. It's, right. So we'll see what happens. We shouldn't put the cart before the horse here and say we have a great chance. We have a tiny chance of this happening, but it's like maybe 5% as opposed to the 0% that it was the last time we convened. So,
that's true.
It's funny because like everybody's talking about this, and the fact that this news dropped on the draft day was absolutely unreal. There's a lot of people that were really mad about that. And I don't know, we've talked about this before, who leaked it, who didn't leak it. It doesn't matter. I don't really think right now. What really matters is that like it's available, and that's a possibility. Jillian also, thanks for watching, says his fiance lives in Denver. Yes, that is one of the key factors, I believe, one of the factors in his desire to come to Colorado. Now, however, we also have to remember he's on contract. Yep. He's on a contract, so he really gets no say in where he goes because of that contract in the clause in it. So really, it's up to Green Bay. I mean, they could send him to the Browns for all he knows. So he just doesn't get a say in that. I mean, they obviously don't get along, so I'm not sure if they're even going to talk to him about it. That's another interesting thing.
So if I'm not mistaken, I think Rodgers' contract ends next year. So if they were going to get anything for him, this would be the year to do it. But you're right. They could say, you want to go to Denver? Don't give a crap. We're going to send you to the Jets. We're going to take their offer and you can go over there and deal with them. Right. So yeah, that is it is quite the stalemate. That's for sure.
Well, and this is what we were talking about. We were talking about this. The NFL is a now. Fans need now. And I think that's a big thing. One of the things that we were talking about when drafting a quarterback as well. He may only be around for 2 or 3 years, but you're right. It makes us an immediate contender. And unlike drafting a quarterback, we know what he can do. He's a proven player in this. And I agree with you. I think, it's a chess game. It's a gamble. I don't even think it's a big gamble. We lose a couple first round picks, but we have Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 to 3 years. So, and even if we have him for 2 or 3 years, now you can put another young gun behind him and have him learn from Aaron Rodgers, and now we're back into an actual position of being an NFL team as opposed to what we've been for the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
We saw how well that worked out with Osweiler, right, Jared?
Yeah, well, see, but he took the money and ran to Houston. That little, I love you, Brock. We'll talk later.
Did Brock Osweiler and Aaron Rodgers just get compared apples to apples?
No. Whoever our backup is going to be, that's
okay. Because remember, we got Manning, and then we had Osweiler. We're like, Osweiler's going to learn all these cool things from Manning, and then he took like $75 million and robbed the Houston Texans.
Still paying for it. Anyway.
All right, so this is a good transition, Dwayne. What happens if we don't get Rodgers?
Mm-hmm.
So where we're sitting right now, right? We have Drew Lock and we have Teddy Bridgewater. What's the plan going into the offseason? What are you guys reading? What are you guys hearing?
So there's a lot of, George Payton came out and said it's a 50-50 battle in the quarterback room between Bridgewater and Drew Lock there. Drew Lock needs that competition, right? I get it. Go in there and look, dude, this job is not yours, not 100% anyway. So, but if I was a bet man, I would bet, and I talked to Raymond about this, I guess, that Drew Lock's going to be the starter, because one thing this team just has not had since Peyton Manning is consistency across many different areas, to include, definitely, how many times do we have to talk about that goddamn quarterback carousel, right? So do we really want to add yet another name to that? Before long, they're going to call it the quarterback, whatever, and it's just going to be bigger and bigger and bigger.
We're gonna have one of those Browns. Like I did on Reddit. I said something on Reddit to somebody, and they didn't get the joke. But the Browns picture that everybody sees with all the last names crossed off over and over again. We're starting to turn into that, and we got to stop that.
And so, look, this is Drew. So to me, this is Drew Lock's job to lose. It's not for certain, but we can't afford to go in there with yet another quarterback to start. So, and we got to see what we have in him. We've waited, and been patient with him for 2 years now, essentially 1 full year. This is a chance to prove it. And I want to know if this is our guy or not. So that's where I'm at.
This is his last chance to start anywhere. Because if he loses a training camp battle to Teddy Bridgewater, then he's done. That's it. You may bounce around as a backup for a couple other teams for a few more years, but that's it. Ask Paxton Lynch how it worked out. It's pretty bleak for him if he can't make it happen. But if on the other hand the offense is really better off in the hands of Teddy Bridgewater, the Broncos, welcome to 9-8, Denver fans.
You know what? That's not bad though, compared to where we have been.
Yeah, we'll see.
9-8 might make playoffs.
Hey, you know what? If we go 9-8, Drew Lock is staying.
Oh no, I mean, if Bridgewater wins the starting job, I think he's a good enough placeholder with this offense to win you 9 games in a 17-game season.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that, David, except that we also have on paper one of the easiest schedules this year, being that we got the 4th. We were 4th in the division. So I think with the Bridgewater and the talent on our team, we should be competing for double-digit wins even. So I love it as our backup. If Locke beats him, like we all hope he does, right? He's supposed to be our guy. Then, we are competing for that playoff spot, I think, either way, unless they both get injured and now we're just dealing with injury issues all over again.
That's it. Yep. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest point is we want Drew Lock, the consistency with Drew Lock being there for a couple of years. And like you said, it's his job to lose. If he loses in training camp, you're right. That's kind of game over. If he loses it mid-season because he's lost, I honestly do feel for some reason, as you're going through social media stuff, he's lost most of the fan base. I mean, now after the draft and everything, people are kind of like rescinding on their, oh no, I didn't hate Drew Lock. I just wanted anybody else. But I think he's kind of lost some of that fan base, and Broncos country can be mean sometimes. Fickle. And if he doesn't, the first 5-6 games, if he doesn't show out and really, prove that he can be the guy to win. I mean, even if he goes 500 in the first 6 games, it's going to be a tough sledding for him.
I think if we go 500, halfway through the season, first 6-8 games or whatever, he stays on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
But the second half of the season is going to decide his fate moving forward. But you got to, with the coaching staff, they know that if we have a below 500, if we have less than I'd say 9-8 season, they're definitely gone. If we go 8-9, nobody's going to know, right? It's going to be a toss up. But if we're less than that, they're definitely gone. And so they're going to be ready to make that decision, as soon as they're like, yeah, this is not working out. We're moving on. So,
yeah. Okay. So we have a couple comments here I want to get to. Jillian says Rodgers, as we go back to that, we'll just touch on this. Would rather have Watson if that was available, obviously, as we wait for his stuff to work out, only because he has a longer career ahead of him. while Watson is also kind of a more proven guy. I get that. I think right now where we're sitting, we have a better chance of landing Rodgers until Watson's whole scenario plays out. And I don't want to get too far into that. Jeremy says we need a young guy. You know, I actually mentioned this, and I don't want to go on too much of a rant, but I'll just mention it right now about the young guy process and the fact that we didn't draft a quarterback in this draft. You got to think about it. And David's put this multiple times. He said it this way: George Payton is going to draft a quarterback on his time, not ours. Right? Yeah. While we know that the quarterback is an issue that we need to fix, and all of these people that we've drafted this week, that we're going to get into now, we're already 15 minutes in the show, that we're eventually going to get to all the guys that we drafted. All these guys that we drafted are going to be backup guys. They're not going to be immediate starters. Even our first round pick is not going to be the immediate starter. So while we know we have a good team, we have someone that can rally around, we need a quarterback. We have to understand the process here. Biggest thing is as we're talking about it, if we do not make the playoffs this year, the only person's job who's safe right now is George Payton. Everybody else is going to be gone. You can't lose 3 seasons in a row and still be a head coach or still have a coaching job in the NFL. It's just not how it works. So you have to understand that he's giving Fangio what he wants. Says, Fangio, what are you going to do to succeed? Here's what you get if this is what you want. Now go succeed. You think you could do it with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater? Go succeed with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. Prove us wrong so that you can have a job next week. And that's what's going on. So that's what the young guy piece, and we'll get back to that. Does anybody have any comments on that piece before I move on to more questions?
Well, just to add to that, I think that's just going to mean that Drew Lock's going to be on an even shorter leash. So I don't think it's going to be a 6-8 week decision point. I think we're looking at game 2, game 3 if he's not performing.
Really? Okay.
Bridgewater might be thrown in to save the season. If we wait till game 8, it might be too late. You know?
So, I mean, when you say not performing, I mean, are you talking about, like, let's say we go 1-2? Are you done?
I was going to make that comment earlier. I think it's going to be more based on how he is performing and leading this offense, because we have a defense to win, a really boring 10-7 game. But it's going to be totally based on his performance.
That's a fair point.
Dwayne, thank you for joining us. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of new faces here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate that. Dwayne, this is a great point. He thinks that our poor quarterback choices have been because our last 2 head coaches have been defensive-minded coaches. What are you guys' thoughts about that? I mean, I agree. I think that's part of it.
I think it's part of it, but not the whole. It's to me, I don't think a defensive-minded coach is a death knell when you're trying to get young quarterbacks developed if you have competent offensive minds on your staff. I think it's more about the choices that were made. And I don't know who hired Pat Shurmur. That's the thing. Did Vic Fangio hire Pat Shurmur, or did John Elway hire Pat Shurmur? That's what I want to know. And to me, maybe Vic Fangio wanted to delegate that to John Elway if John Elway did hire Pat Shurmur, because Vic Fangio said, I don't, you have a better beat on this than I do. I don't know. But it is more to me about who you put on your offensive staff if you hire a defensive-minded head coach. And I do think the trend recently does point to the fact that offensive-minded head coaches are doing a little bit better with these young quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan is going to get a chance to get his hand-picked guy, but he took Jimmy Garoppolo to a Super Bowl. Right. Sean McVay took Jared Goff to a Super Bowl. Both of these guys, these offensive-minded coaches taking quarterbacks with limitations to Super Bowls has, I think, kind of enamored everybody to the idea that, if you want to succeed in this NFL, having that young offensive mind is kind of key. So, I can definitely see where that narrative would come from.
Good point, David. All right, next we got on the opposite, defense wins championships. And I agree. I think increasing our defense as we once again eventually get to our show about the draft, we will talk in depth about why we think the defense needs more and why they win championships. Rodgers is done 2 years. Jeremy thinks we're going to be top of the AFC West. I love it.
Actually, that was to your comment that Broncos fans are mean. He says we're mean. We want to win the AFC West.
Oh, we are mean. Oh, we want. That's no. Good point. Yeah, good point there.
No, that's yes. We do want to win the AFC West, but I don't think that's happening this year unless you've got Aaron Rodgers. So,
yep. This is another thing, Rich. This is a good point to David's comment as well. If Drew is not consistent, or to John's comment, I guess, if we go, we win more than 50%. Say in the first 4-5 games, we've won, 3 of them. If he's thrown 3 interceptions per game, he's not going to be the guy. He can't be the guy. If our defense is bailing us out every time, you got to switch. I agree with John on that one. That's a good point.
Yeah, he does have to show. I don't know if I agree that John's with John about how short a hook he has, but he does have to show improvement immediately. I think like much better play from the first game.
100%. I agree, Jillian. Locke's. I really hope that Locke proves us all wrong. I hope he comes out. He goes with this consistency on my off season work. I'm gonna prove Eddie wrong. Okay, now let's get into right before we go into our draft. Let's get into Ken's question. What do we think about Juwan James? His situation. He just got injured. He's out. Torn ACL, out for the season. Regardless, off-season workout. Just for anybody who doesn't know, he was not at the facilities for Denver. He was out doing his own workout, probably back home, and he got injured. What two big things for that from a management standpoint, from a sports management or Denver management standpoint, is that we don't have to pay him this year because of that. We don't have to pay him his $10 million guaranteed because he got injured not working out at the Denver Broncos location, which is huge because this is already a point of concern. Two, Juwan James last year sat out and he opted out for the COVID year, which was fine. Everybody was okay with it. The year before that, he played 3 games, 2 1/4, and he only played 65 total snaps. So in his 3 years with us so far, he's played 65 total snaps. He's already gotten $17 million for those 65. What's the thought process here? He's gone. Yep. For me, he's gone. We're trading him. We're cutting him. He's not going to get his money. We might give him a farewell package with some apples and some oranges in it, but say, hey man, it didn't work out. Sorry about that. We got to move on. Right?
Yeah. That's it.
I mean, I remember having all that excitement about him. We signed him. All of us were like, this guy has, can bring so much to this offensive line. And, in the past few seasons, we just sat here saying, man, it'd be nice if we, had this guy out here we were paying. Last year, not so much because, Garrett Bowles did really step up, right? The year before that, I mean, it was so painful. But now we're sitting here going, yeah, look, we got to move on. We have a strong offensive line, and keeping him on the roster is and just in on our salary cap in general is just not good for us in any way, shape, or form, man.
Well, and I'm not going to kill James for it. And he had some bad injury luck a couple of times, and that's the way we can talk about how much he got paid, but he signed the contract they put in front of him, so that's the way it goes. And this is the risk you take with football players sometimes. And you're right; that's the end for him. Here in Denver. What do you guys think? I mean, who are some names? Leno from the Bears. That's one that I've gotten tossed. That's been tossed around. Bobby Massey was their starter at right tackle last year. He's also a free agent. I would rather have Mitchell Schwartz. To be honest with you, but who knows what his back is like right now? He's played at such a high level that if he was truly healthy, would he be signed by now? I don't know. So I don't know. Is there any other names out there that you guys would really maybe want to see?
It's slim pickings right now in free agency, as we would all expect a week after the draft, week after the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of trade scenario out there. I can't even throw a name out there, a team out there that's willing to part with a tackle, a right tackle. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. One thing to note, as far as how this is going to affect salary cap and all that stuff, while it does sound like we're going to recoup a lot of that money, it's not going to be something where we automatically get it day one. I think there's going to be a legal process that plays out here. Can't quite count on that just yet, but I think it does sound like that will likely be coming.
Yep.
Yeah. And as far as getting someone, I fully expect that we're going to get a depth player. I don't think we're going to get a starter, right tackle starter. There's names out there. They're really high on Calvin Anderson, who stepped into his absence last year. Graham Glasgow has played tackle, actually had one of his best seasons at tackle. So moving him out and maybe letting Moody step up to play that guard position. We kind of have some depth, and we have guys that can move around, and that's one of the best parts about our offensive line is that we have guys that can play different positions. I'd like to see what happens, but I do think we're going to get someone that's going to be a depth guy, and we're going to try to make what we have currently work. I fully expect, and I'll say it right now, I fully expect we're going to have the same offensive line we did last year, where we have Bowles, Reisner, Cushenberry, and then we'll have Glasgow, and then we'll have Anderson on the right tackle side.
Another option I've heard thrown around is moving Reisner to right tackle. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I don't think it's going to
I
happen.
like where he is.
I think they really have the philosophy that that's an emergency situation. But if you move him, now you've created 2 holes on your offensive line. You've got Moody or Miners that you could put in at guard, but the unknown quantities at this point. So, yeah, and quite frankly, so is Reisner at tackle in the NFL. He's never played a single snap there in the NFL. So you're creating more questions than answers when you move him over, I think.
Yep. Nicholas says the same thing about Leno. He likes your picking up Leno from the Bears option.
I stole it from him. So.
Oh, did you? Well, okay, that works. And So we're almost halfway through episode. We haven't once talked about the draft. So let's talk about the draft. Let's start with round 1. We pick up Patrick Surtain, right, cornerback from Alabama. Which, for the record,
Surtain or
go
Surtain?
back.
It's Surtain, but for the
Surtain. I said that's what I said.
I just,
Can you
no,
just okay? Just
well,
it's
see,
what
I want to make sure I'm not going to say it wrong.
And the thing is, you're going to say it
so-
Surtain again next week, and then we're going to have to go.
And
through
I'm
all
going to
this
say,
again,
is it Surtain or
so-
Surtain? Because I'm going to question myself again.
Specifically said Surtain. And so, anyways, go back to pre-free agency. He was our number 1 guy on the board. We're talking about him and the kid from I forget, FSU, I think, as the top 2 options. The corner as our top 2 options.
Horn, J.C. Horn.
No, it wasn't Horn. It was the other one.
Fairly.
Oh, Farley.
Farley, yeah, it's Virginia Tech. Sorry, the Virginia Tech. You're right.
Yeah.
So him and Farley were our top 2 options, and all the things that we talked about were corner, and then in the free agency we go out and get 2 to 3 corners. We're like, okay, maybe that's not our immediate threat, but now we do. We go out there and we get a top corner and someone who's probably going to be shut down. He's probably going to be in the league for a real long time. What do you guys think about the pick?
It's a pick that you don't think has an immediate need because of these signings in free agency. But when you look past the surface of that, even for 1 second, in 2022, that becomes a really big hole. Kyle Fuller is on a 1-year deal. Bryce Callahan's deal ends after this season. So there's 2 guys that you're talking about as starters gone next year. And not to mention the fact that Patrick Surtain is not only the best corner in this class, but is probably one of the better corner prospects in the last few drafts. Like a true shutdown corner prospect that is going to, for George Payton, outlive whatever coaching staff you want to bring in next if you have to bring in another one. So he's the kind of guy who is going to be a foundational piece of your defense no matter what in going forward. And so, he's your highest rated guy on your board when that pick comes up. Your trade back options aren't great. You go for it if you're George Payton and you don't really think twice.
Absolutely. With your first round pick, you want that guy that's going to be, around for a decade or more. So that's exactly what this pick was for. I fully see him as a replacement for Fuller in a year. It sounded like this was just a guy they didn't expect to be available, the number 1 defender they had on their board. Mm-hmm. And they just couldn't pass it up. And they even had trade offers because we both know 2 quarterbacks were available at that point. They had trade offers, but the packages weren't just weren't good enough for them to pass up on certain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously like the draft too, or I like the pick too, and it's going to be funny. We'll revisit this here in a couple of years, but and this happens every time. But after every draft, we always love the picks just because we're pretty diehard. We got the orange and blue goggles on, which I can admit. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he does as a established corner on our team, and it's kind of something that we've done between Chris Harris is the last one I can think of, although he was undrafted, being a guy that just stayed with our team for a while, and I like that Aqib Talib. They've compared him to him, so I think those are big names to be compared to, and I'm excited to see what he does.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that's the next big one. I love it. I love this pick. People are going to be mad at it. Everyone's asking, why do we trade up to get a running back in the 2nd round? What's the reason that we trade up after we let Lindsey go, right? We talked about this. Homeboy kid, everybody loves Lindsey. He had a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Why do we let him go to pick up this running back out of North Carolina? I know why. What do you guys want to say about it?
Go ahead, John.
The guy's a stud. I mean, I was super excited. I didn't think he was going to be available in the 2nd round when we were going to pick. That's why we traded up. Obviously, they felt the same way. And of the three big running backs that were in this draft, the top three, he was the one that he was moving up people's board very quickly here in the last week. So I heard a lot about him moving up to the draft, and I think he's going to be the replacement for Melvin Gordon. Again, a long-term play potentially here. And honestly, he's just not the same player as Lindsey, right? You can't really compare the two. They don't play the same way, even though it's the same position. So I think he's more of a long-term solution. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at, right? So if Lindsey's a smaller guy, he's kind of an outside run only. You can't really use him on the inside. I love the Williams pick. I think that he's a bulldozer. You watch some of his highlight tapes. He's running people over. He does not go down on first contact, which is something I think the offense, especially this offensive coordinator, wants. Someone that's not going to go down on first contact like Lindsey. You can use him on the outside. You can use him on the inside. It has great acceleration through the hole, which is another thing that's big on running backs as you're looking. I love this pick. You're right. I can't believe he fell to the second round in the first place.
Yeah,
I mean, he was Pro Football Focus's number 1 ranked running back.
Right.
And we were able to grab him in the second round. So, you're sitting there as the Broncos. You're 5 picks away. I think we traded about 4 or 5 spots. You're sitting there saying, "Man, we're already we cannot believe he's already here. Let's move up. We have some, these extra draft picks later on in the draft."
They had to get in front of Miami. That was the big.
Yeah. It's already come out that Miami was like, "Come on, man."
Yeah, right.
So it was one of those things where you're talking about a first year GM coming in and making a really good, smart move. This was it, man. First round, fantastic pick. Second round, I think, is where it showed, what he's willing to do and kind of where his thought process is in terms of how he drafts and stuff and what he's willing to do to make that happen. So that told me a whole lot more. I mean, absolutely love the pick, but I love what he did to get this trade for us to move up and get him.
And more on the field side of it, like you guys were saying a little bit, Williams is such a better scheme fit for what Pat Shurmur wants in a running back. The team views him, I think, as a true 3-down back. A guy you can keep on the field for passing downs because he can actually be a weapon as a passing option. A guy who can block, who can pass block if, hold off extra blitzers. A guy who bangs between the tackles, a really strong runner. Steve Jackson just put this comment up. It's a really good point. Those 1-yard runs on 3rd down and 1, 3rd down and 2, 4th down and 1. We just have not had a guy that can convert those with regularity. Williams, I think, is really going to be a guy who can help us there. I like the pick too. Trading a 4th round pick to move up a few spots in the 2nd round. I know some people won't be crazy about that, but for a guy with this much talent, who a lot of people really thought was the best running back in a class that had Najee Harris in it, that's to me a pretty strong statement.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, as far as the whole moving up, giving up a draft pick to make that happen, I mean, what he did in the 3rd round made up for that, in my opinion.
Very much so.
Only moving up, he's moving back as well to pick up somewhere.
And getting great value on both of those 3rd round picks.
Yeah, so let's talk about those 3rd round picks. The first 3rd round pick, we traded back twice, I believe, for the first 3rd round pick. And we picked up Quinn
Miners.
Really? That's a
Miners.
Meiners.
No, it's definitely not Meiners, Jared.
Definitely Meiners.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
anyways,
I'm certain it's not Meiners.
Oh, geez, there it is.
Quinn Miners. No, he's I'm sure you guys have seen the video of him knocking over trees in Canada as he's training at his I think his uncle's island up there in Canada, which is huge. I mean, that's a big pick. That was somebody that was completely off a lot of people's boards until the Senior Bowl, which he really came out, showed his belly. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he not only showed his belly, he showed that he was standing up to Division I defensive line prospects as well as anybody at the Senior Bowl, despite coming out of Wisconsin Whitewater, which I couldn't tell you what town, city, or locality in Wisconsin that is.
I assume the town is Whitewater.
You assumed, Jared, but you also assumed his name was pronounced Meiners. So
apparently it's DeKegger Meiners.
Anyway, a really good interior offensive line prospect, a guy who could play guard or center, and who I actually expect at this point to be a competition for center in training camp between him and Lloyd Cushenberry. That's I'm going to be really interested to see how that plays out, because that guy was a 3rd round pick a year ago.
Yeah. And it doesn't hurt to have competition at center. Kush did a great job last year. He got better and better. It seemed like every single game. But hey, if this guy beats him, okay, I'm okay with it. And if you haven't seen it, go out and watch the highlights from this guy. It is terrifying to see a man that big and that fast going down the field.
Well, and even if he doesn't win this year, if he's a backup or if he's sitting back, what I liked about that video is his work ethic, right? You look at his work ethic and you look at what he can do and what he wants to do, being the underdog coming from the division, I don't know, 15, whatever he is, division 15 school there. And coming up to being drafted and getting there. I think if he does sit behind all season and it doesn't even see a snap, I would be surprised to see him coming in the next year and next couple of years if we need him to come in. Yeah. Okay. So then after Quinn Meiners, I'm going to say it for the rest of Meiners. We're gonna trade back. We trade back again. We get Baron Browning. This is a big one. A lot of people are really excited about this. Super surprised that Browning fell this far late into the third round. The linebacker class of this draft was very slim. There was not a lot of really big linebackers out there, and I'd say Browning was probably in the top 5 for sure, maybe top 3 as a linebacker coming out of college. Linebacker from Ohio State. This is one of our first Ohio State picks of 2. What do you guys think about Browning?
I like it.
The guy can cover, most importantly.
That's
250 pounds and runs a 4.56. I mean, that's speed that you don't see for someone his size and at that position. So, I mean, there's potentially our problems at coverage linebacker. So, love that. And he can pass rush at times.
And I was going to, circling, I should have said this when we were talking about Surtain. I'm not entirely certain they don't think of him as a guy that would be able to cover the tight ends in the AFC.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, so you're giving yourself multiple
point.
options then,
Right.
You're not just relying on one guy on your team that can do it, right? You got
right. And we know
multiple
Fangio
options.
likes to mix personnel on defense too.
Yep.
He likes to put extra DBs in there. He likes to mix up his coverages. It's just more guys who give him more options.
Yeah.
And Browning is also a guy who is a decent pass rusher. Like he's 240 pounds and can rush the edge.
Right.
There's no question about it. So you can put him. I think maybe that was one of the reasons he dropped just a little bit. There was some concerns about what position he was going to be best at in the NFL. But a mind like Vic Fangio,
exactly.
I don't have any problems or concerns about what they're going to do with him.
Yeah.
And I definitely see him playing in more of like an upfront safety, like a strong safety coming down / outside will linebacker. I think you're right. I think he's going to try to be our answer for some of the tight ends, but I don't think he gets the start right off the bat. I do think he sits and from here on out, they've mentioned multiple times Fangio and Peyton have all mentioned multiple times that they really need to fix up one of the biggest weaknesses on everybody thinks it's quarterback. It was special teams, 32nd in the freaking league last year in special teams. And I think that's one of the big things that they were trying to do here. So in the rest of these rounds, these are all going to be special teams guys coming in and trying to make an impact there. I think he's going to start off as a special teams guy, but you're right. Down the road, I definitely see him being one of our top linebackers, if not one of our starters in the next, first 6 games, the next 6 games to a year from now.
Yeah, for me, this draft overall was just all about depth and positioning for the future. And I think aside from our first 2 picks, maybe you can even throw out Patrick Surtain. Really, Javonte Williams might be the only one that might be a day one, getting more than 50% of the snaps. Anyways, I really felt like this was another great value depth move going down the draft. It seems like every pick we made, for the most part, was a value pick that a lot of people didn't think these people were going to, be available when we were picking at those positions.
Yeah. And those were both of our 3rd round picks. And one we're going to talk about in a little bit here, Jamar Johnson. Those were the 3 names. Meiners, Browning, and Johnson were the ones that I really heard of as our best kind of value picks.
Yeah. So next up we pick, and I honestly think we can talk Johnson right now. I think the rest of these guys, and I can name them all off if you guys want me to, but I think the rest of these guys are all going to be special teams guys. We're trying to use them in the special teams. I was watching the post-draft interview, and they had Vic and they had a Peyton there, and they were asking him questions like, okay, what was your thought process going into the draft? He goes, well, we wanted to get our top guy, and we got him in Surtain. And then we wanted to get a couple, key pieces. The running back and Williams was a big part. And he straight up said, he goes, the rest of it was trying to get depth. He said, you want 10 picks. This is the biggest thing I took away from it. I love it. He said you want 10. You want as many picks as possible because of any draft, you're only going to get about 50% of the players are going to make it and they're going to do well. So if you have 5 picks, you're only going to get maybe maximum 3 of them that are going to do well. But if you have 10 picks, now you're talking about maybe 5 of them. And if we can get those guys on that depth on the special teams, playing for special teams for a year, do really well, and then see what they could do on the team. I love it. I love the thought process. I love how open he is, and he didn't miss a beat on it. I think that's something that we've been missing a little bit as far as communication from the front office. But yeah, so the rest of these guys rant over. The rest of these guys are going to be special teams guys, and like Shadow said, worst to first on special teams, and we like to hope so. And I'll tell you what, the only thing, I don't know how we got 32nd in the streak because we saw one of the best kickers in the league. Yeah, and we still were the worst special teams, and we just could not get it done. So, okay, first up, Caden Stearns.
Go.
No, go ahead, Kev.
So on top of that, you're talking about all these extra draft picks. So you look at all the undrafted college free agents we signed. A lot of it, the descriptions are based off of speed and good special teams contender, spot on the team there. I mean, every one of these guys you're talking about, you're looking at what their strategy is, and now you have just a ton of players basically that are going to be, competing for special team spots. And it's not just like, okay, well, we need to fill special teams, so let's see what we got. It's, hey, we have a good group of people that can compete to make the special teams spots specifically. And yeah, so maybe not first, but I wouldn't, it can't get worse than 32nd, man.
And here's the other thing I noticed is I'm going to list off these names. All of them are coming from either the SEC or the Big Ten. These are all guys that are playing in these bigger conferences with bigger guys. They're not, other than Miners, who is someone that we obviously picked up for a different reason. All the guys past round 3, round 5 and on are all guys that are playing at bigger conferences. They're playing at bigger schools like Caden Stearns, Texas, Jamar Johnson, Indiana, Seth Williams, Auburn, Kerry Vincent Jr., LSU, Jonathan Cooper, Ohio State, Marquise Spencer, Mississippi State. These are all big conferences guys that are playing with high quality talent.
Exactly.
I know, David, I know you want to talk a little bit about Jamar Johnson. Is there any other names that pop out to you right now that you want to talk about?
Jamar Johnson's really the one to me of the later round guys, because Johnson is, I think you got a good point about these guys all being potential special teamers. But Johnson is a guy who is a big time, like, tape over traits guy. He was producing. He was great in coverage. He is a rangy athlete. He is exactly what a Fangio defense needs in a safety. So he really is a guy who could be playing significant snaps next year or the year after that, especially, as we see Kareem Jackson. Thank you. Yeah. K-Jax on a 1-year deal. So he and Caden Stearns, I think, those are names to watch, but I think a little bit more Johnson, even though, in this kind of split safety defense, he profiles more, I think, as the free safety than as the strong safety. I think Stearns is probably a little bit more of the strong safety type. But still, those guys, it's going to be really interesting to see what that does, because we totally remade our safety depth with this draft.
Absolutely.
Going to be really fun to see if those guys really are just special teams players or if they can grow into more than that.
Right. And I thought that was important, taking two safeties in the 5th round. On first glance, that kind of felt a little weird, but yeah, like you said, Kareem Jackson's gone after this year, unless we sign him to another 1-year deal. So if one of those two can really show up this year, and we're talking about 5th round picks here, so we're not going to get super excited or expect a ton of these guys for this year, but if they can develop and potentially, again, be in competition at least for starter next year.
Yeah.
Yep, and then round 7's obviously with a corner, defensive end. I think those are depth guys that we're talking. Special teams guys.
It's kind of the strategy, like always draft a quarterback in every draft. The Broncos are like always drafting a pass rusher in every draft.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there's like even maybe if it's just a 7th round developmental guy. They did Derek Tuska last year from North Dakota State. This year it's Marquise Spencer. Just
Jonathan Cooper.
Yeah, and Jonathan Cooper too. Both of those guys. Yeah, so throwing darts at that position, especially. It's a bigger position of need next year's draft when Von Miller's contract is up. But for now, if you get one of those developmental guys to hit, so much the better.
Well, yeah, look at all those low round guys or maybe even undrafted guys that we've had that have come in and performed at that pass rush position. I mean, Malik Reed.
Absolutely.
I mean, where did Shaq Barrett came out of nowhere? Again, go CSU. And he's making, over $10 million a year with Tampa. So
and
a Super Bowl champion.
And deserves. He deserves it.
Two-time Super Bowl champion. So so that's it for our draft. We had some free agent signings, a couple hometown guys. We got some Air Force, Colorado State, with some CSU guys, which is exciting. Nolan Laufenberg is a guard from Air Force. Picked him up. I don't think the Air Force did too hot, Kevin, in this draft. How did they do?
You got one.
Give him a counterpoint.
Outside of the draft, not in
Give
the
him
draft.
a counterpoint, Kevin.
Playing.
How many Navy guys did the Broncos sign, Jared?
Oh, this is true.
The Broncos specifically. What Broncos aren't in the Indianapolis area? You know what? We'll move on. So we also got.
Okay.
Wait, that's where. That's where the Navy. That's where the naval.
The Navy doesn't count.
So Warren Jackson, Colorado State, former Rams,
not Indianapolis.
receiver.
Anyway, let's talk
Indianapolis is right next to Indianapolis. Do you know your We'll move on.
What? Okay. All right. Jared's talking some nonsense. Let's talk about Warren Jackson, the CSU wide receiver.
Oh, man.
Yes.
That is the Broncos undrafted free agent this year. A guy, Shadow Jacker is pretty intrigued to see him in the red zone. I assume he profiles as a little bit of a bigger body kind of guy. It's going to be interesting to see these guys in preseason. That's what everybody complains about the preseason. I know why the players hate the preseason. I totally understand. But for me, it's really, really fun to kind of go and see these names that you're probably never going to see in a football uniform again, because sometimes they make big names for themselves.
Yeah, you never know.
Yep. I remember how exciting it was to watch Philip Lindsay in the preseason. So what if a guy like Warren Jackson, like we were saying, the hometown boy makes good again, he forces his way onto the team.
Yeah, this is a tall dude, like Shadow Jackson. Yeah. 6'6". He sat out this year, shortened season. I'm sure you guys aren't following CSU football, but they had a new coaching system, so he sat out. The old system was very wide receiver heavy and friendly. We have some NFL players in right now out of CSU, Rashard Higgins, BC Johnson, some very good players. And hopefully he can just kind of fill in there. He had over 1,000 yards in 2019, was catching all the passes, getting all the touchdowns for that team. So it could be of the undrafted players. Obviously, I'm very biased, but he's the one that stood out the most to me.
And I mean, there's a couple other Colorado State. I mean, they were saying Colorado State was kind of becoming wide receiver U before they turned over completely on the offensive coordinator. Who's the kid that went to the Cowboys?
Michael Gallup.
Yeah. So he's another one.
Be your favorite guy.
I know. I just blanked on his name for a second. So yeah, he's one of my favorite receivers over there. And coming out of Colorado State, and Colorado State was a lot of wide receivers on that old coaching staff was coming out of Colorado State, and he's one of those guys. It's a good pickup. Unfortunately, our wide receiver room is deep.
It's deep.
It's super deep. So it's going to be difficult for him to break through on that. I'd like to see him crack the roster. Every year we pick up, I think for the past 6 or 7 years, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we've picked up an undrafted free agent to make the 53-man. I'm excited to see who it is this year. Obviously, we'd love to see the hometown guy again, just like we did with Philip Lindsay when he did. But we'll see what happens there. One more thing I want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I think the other one's going to be the tight end out of Iowa. It seems like every year we're taking an Iowa tight end, even though this one's drafted. But he, obviously, if you look at his statistics, he's not catching a lot of balls. He seems to be a blocking tight end. But from what I was reading, it looked like they were interested in the Notre Dame tight end, who was rated as the best blocking tight end in the draft. So it doesn't surprise me that they went out and got a blocking guy. We obviously don't need a wide receiver that's going to go out there and catch 1,000 yards for us. So maybe this guy can step up and kind of fill that role that's open right now as the blocking tight end for us.
Well, it's funny too, because last season we went into the off season and we had a tight end room of like 30 people.
Right.
And I don't know why we had so many tight ends. And this year we kind of didn't really think about that much. And outside of Noah Fant and Okuebanam, we don't really have anybody that really steps out. I mean, Jake Butt's gone. I mean, he's basically done. And then we have some other guys that we picked up from. Who was the kid that we picked up from the Steelers that played okay, but I think we cut him.
Yeah, he's gone. That was Van.
Yeah,
and he came into beer.
That's right. Yeah, he came into beer blocking 10. So you're right. That might be one of those guys that we're like, hey, Big 10 guy coming in, and we can turn him into a blocking 10. I love it. Yeah. So that's our draft. We got through our draft.
How would you grade it?
So I don't like grading drafts because
I wasn't talking to you.
I have Origin Blue goggles, and I think we all do.
I also don't like
Football Focus. What do you
I
think?
also don't like to grade drafts, but I can say that
I know it's just interesting to kind of.
Well, but these people want to hear the opinions of voices they respect talk about the thing that their team just did, which I guess is us, since people are here. So I won't give them a grade. Right, I won't give them a grade. I like the strategy.
Okay,
I like the overall strategy. I like the identifying of guys and going and getting those guys. I like the how the approach that they're trying to use to build this team. Did they pick all the guys that I would have picked? No, but does that mean anything for the success or failure of this class? Also, no. So I right direction. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
trending up.
Trending up for sure. I like the idea of taking value and moving up when we need to for the guy that they really liked. If you want to give it a B, sure, B plus, whatever you want to call it. We're not going to know for another couple of years, right? So
right.
Yep.
There's no way to give it a good
part
grade.
of the fun, but no,
and that's
completely
I'm not going
agree.
to crap all over draft grades either. I get why people want to do it. So yeah.
Right. But to Steve's point here, the one area that I was surprised that we didn't get any tackles out there, which kind of goes back to their whole philosophy here, was really not reaching for anybody, not taking a guy based on position, but really going for who's available and the best available in my mind.
And this might just
hindsight's 2020. I think if we could redo the draft, there'd probably be some tackle taken in there somewhere with Juwan James' injury. But
and I think and this might just be one of the face-saving things that a front office says after a draft, but I heard it before the injury to James, so I'll take it as at least a little bit more face value. They had some tackles that they had rated pretty highly, and the draft just didn't follow them the way they wanted it to. They would have taken some guys. I think probably if Penei Sewell had fallen to 9, they would have taken Penei Sewell. I think they probably had him rated higher than Surtain just overall on their board. But then he went and they had Surtain rated higher than the next one, which was Slater. So they took him. I think it just didn't fall out the way, they didn't have the value where they wanted to get a tackle where they wanted to get one. So
now here's my question, I guess, and my drop the bomb into the room. If Juwan James gets injured pre-draft, do we pick up Rashawn Slater instead of letting him slide through?
I
think that would have probably.
If they had gotten an offer to trade back that would have kept them ahead of the Chargers, I think they would have traded back and taken him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you got to go in there, and I think we were all expecting him to be playing at least somewhat, right? Being somewhat an active part of this team. So,
right.
So I think
they were very high on James this year, and I think they were expecting him to come in and kind of prove everybody wrong. And now we can't even see that. So.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I think Slater slid further than most people were thinking. I think that they were expecting him to be a top 10 pick, to get down to the Chargers, which is unfortunate for us, is rough. But you pick up Slater, and now instead of picking up a fourth corner, possibly a shutdown corner for a while, you pick up your right tackle for the rest of the season. So I don't know. I do think that if this Juwan James happened a week ago, we would be picking up Slater with our pick instead of but that's not where we're at. We're sitting with who we have and where we're at, and we're gonna go from there. Let's see. One more question. And I don't like it, Shadow. I'm sorry, but do we think the non-Fields draft will haunt us? Not picking up Fields will haunt us.
It could.
Good.
Okay.
That's what I like. All right.
It could, because I really like
any draft pick could haunt you. Passing up on anybody could haunt you, right?
Shane Ray.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, yeah, it could. We could sit there and he's the next, I don't freaking know, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. We're sitting here and for the next 20 years, all we're going to hear from people is, the Broncos could have, picked up, Fields and I don't know. Yeah, it could. I'm not too worried about it though, to be honest with you.
Of course, there's no way to know if it's going to haunt us right now. All we can definitely say is that the Broncos were not high on Mac Jones or Justin Fields.
Yeah.
At 9, right? They just weren't. So they made that abundantly clear by not talking about getting them. They were talking to teams about trading down, and they just didn't get the right offer for someone to move up to 9 to get Fields. So they went with their best available and a guy that, again, they were trying to hide the fact that they were this interested in Patrick. So, I think it's going to be a great pick for how highly they rated this guy.
Yeah. I want to circle back to this Rodgers discussion because Red Cloud just brought it up. Hey,
Red Cloud.
Thanks for coming in. I wonder, I'd be really interested to see if they hold off on signing a right tackle for a while. Because if they don't bring anybody in the next week or two, that may, it might just be another indication they're saving their cap space for something. And if they do, and it may not mean anything, but there's little tiny hints to watch for as this Rodgers thing unfolds over the next month. And God, I hope if it's going to happen, please happen June 1st or 2nd. Please don't be another 3 or 4 weeks after that.
You saying that killed me inside.
I know.
A whole month more of this.
I looked at it drags out into the middle of July or the beginning of August, and it's like, oh God, now. We'll have a lot of trivia shows.
I'm not sure if you guys have seen the meme, but it's the circle of life for the Green Bay Packers. It's like screw up the draft. Aaron Rodgers gets angry. We are here. Aaron Rodgers goes 13-3 in the season, loses in the postseason's championship game. Screw up the draft, and then it's just like this circle of it's like the Green Bay Packers circle of life. So, because I do remember this, and David, you mentioned it on a pregame or pre-draft podcast, I think, or a pre-season podcast last year when this whole thing was going down. Then too, Aaron Rodgers is also kind of like, there's a little bit of rumor, not nearly as much as we have now, but there's a little bit of rumor that he might be leaving. And David's like, oh, there's a chance we could get Rodgers next year. And I'm going to find the clip, David. I will. I'm going to find the clip because if we pick him up, I'm blaring that all over social media.
I need that. That's like, this will be the thing that makes my reputation in this huckster's world out here. That's right. I said huckster.
If Rodgers does go to Las Vegas, how much grain alcohol must I drink to ease the pain?
Here's what will give me solace if that happens. They're going to have to do so much to their roster to fit him onto it, and they still haven't done
already depleted roster.
Yeah, and they haven't done a thing to fix their defense. It's just going to be a tough sledding, even with Rodgers for that Las Vegas team. I think. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Speaking of Vegas, and we don't have Ray here, so we don't get the Ragers odds, but he put into our chat something very important, and I think that's important to mention. The Vegas odds right now for the Broncos to win the Super Bowl are a lot higher than what you'd think. For what we've done in the draft is kind of like, okay, we draft a bunch of backups, right? Guys that
are still having Drew Lock at quarterback.
We're still having Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. It can't be the Teddy Bridgewater trade. I think that was my joke. I was like, you got to believe in Bridgewater, But and John, I don't know if you're looking this up, but our odds right now to either win the Super Bowl or win the AFC West, I think we're second favorited to win the AFC West, and I think we're pretty high compared to where we were to win the Super Bowl, which
most places
says one of two things: either Vegas is like, yeah, Drew Lock's good, or they believe that this Aaron Rodgers trade is a possibility and they don't want to lose money.
Yeah, and right after the draft, I know some were showing us as high as number 8, which had to have been full Aaron Rodgers speculation.
Absolutely.
I haven't checked lately. I'm trying to look it up real quick where we're at right now on some of the sites. But I think one, we're a really underrated team, even if we go in with Locke and Bridgewater. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people this year if that is the case. Do I think it would warrant 8th best team to win the Super Bowl right now? No, of course not. We can't say that based on previous year's performance. But back to David's point, as far as if something doesn't happen right away at tackle, us picking up a guy, us trading for a guy, whatever, Doesn't mean necessarily we're ramping up for Rodgers. Maybe it does. But also remember, like every year after training camp, right? There are drops every year. Surprise guys we're expecting to make those teams that become available. So I think if that is the case, where that we wait that long to pick up a guy, it's just gonna again say a lot of Peyton's process, not reaching for guys, waiting to take the guy that's right for our system.
Several places are showing us as number 9 right now.
Yeah.
Bill,
So that's what
Really
Ray said.
high.
Ray said, I'm going to read it straight from the chat. Ragers is our betting guy. If you guys haven't checked out Ragers, go check him out. Ray is amazing. He has the voice of an angel. So he says, guys, something's going on. All Super Bowl champ lines came down for a few hours today. Broncos jumped to the 8th best odds to win the title this year. We have far and away the second best odds to win the West. A team who hasn't made the playoffs in 5 years, with Locke and Teddy Bridgewater, and Vegas jumped us to the 8th best odds to win it all. So, and for context, KC and Tampa Bay, outside of KC and Tampa Bay, the next 6 teams are all between plus 1,200 and 1,700. So, which means outside of Kansas City and Tampa Bay being the top 2, we fall in basically with the next high tier of Super Bowl odds as far as Vegas goes. I mean, I think you guys are right. I think we are underestimated as a team. I think our defense just got that much better. And I think with consistency that I'd say half of the fan base has been asking for, we're going to be a dangerous team and an underdog team coming into the season. I would not be surprised to see us going very, very well throughout the rest. Yep.
Absolutely. Let's give our friend Rob a shout out here.
Hey, Rob, you're on my side of town. What you doing down Oceanside? We'll talk later. We'll talk later, Rob.
Member of Team Puffball, Rob. Good to see you, buddy.
Never mind. Yeah, you stay in Oceanside.
No. You have to go visit. Go visit and take him a hat, Rob. He needs to be brought to the light.
I'll bring you a visor.
No, you know what happens on the Team Puffball side? You get berated and made fun of and ridiculed.
Yeah, but by whom?
By you.
By you.
No, that's if you're repeat what you said again, but slower.
In Team Puffball world, you get berated by the founder of Team Puffball.
You got berated by the founder of Team Puffball. That's a different thing, Kevin. There's an argument to be made that anyway.
Team Visor's been nice to me. Just
I see.
So Steve, Drew Lock for NFL. I'm gonna ask Ray what the odds are for Drew Lock, if it's even a line. I don't believe that's even on there. If that was a line for Drew Lock for MVP, I guarantee it's like plus 5,000 at least. But that would be funny.
Put $10 honestly, on it.
I would love it. I would absolutely love that.
Put $10 on it. What do you got to lose?
Yeah.
Lock has the 40th best odds on the list.
Drew Lock plus 10,000.
Hold on, 40th best odds. There's only 32 teams.
Well, no, the NFL MVP. So yeah, I mean not.
Oh, so like they're counting like wide receivers.
Yeah, well, yeah, players in general.
Yeah.
But
okay, hey, it's getting that time. It's we've done our show. We're excited for it. Let's go around the horn. Let's start with you, Kev. What are your closing thoughts on everything? So for the record, I'm stealing your thunder here, Kev. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Google Play, all that stuff for your podcast. Make sure you guys are liking and sharing our pages. We really appreciate you guys watching. And we have some pretty exciting news coming down probably for our next episode. So stay tuned as we continue to grow Orange Weekly. We're really excited to stay in with you. We're going on our 6th year, which I think is amazing for a bunch of guys that just do this for funsies. I think it's great that we're doing for 6 years. And I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for commenting. We had a lot of new guys, new commenters out there. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys are following us and liking us and rating us. Going around the room, closing thoughts. Kev.
Well, now you got the draft behind us. It's time to start looking towards the regular season. You know, it's not anymore who are we going to pick? You know, what is this, you know, the roster going to look like in terms of what are we going to go into training camp with? Now we know. So now you can really start looking at, it's going to be training camp before you know it. These guys are going to be out on the field. We're going to be, we might be out of practice one day, David and I, like on the field, maybe, possibly. We'll see how the COVID stuff goes. So we'll be reporting to you from there. Be pretty exciting, but
yeah, not to bury the lead there, guys. But
I'm just saying,
we may be on the move.
We may be on the move.
That's right.
And it's season's almost here, man. It's May.
Like,
it's freaking May already.
What if somebody like hits me with a sweaty towel or something while we're there? Like really? What if I
never be able to wash your face?
Like Von Miller's sweat, like on me. Like that's it. No more. Like that. We're done with the face washing forever.
Yeah. We'll be reporting on it live. If that happens, I'll go.
That's
live
right. Yeah, we'll give a blow by
breaking
blow
news.
Right. Mm-hmm. I want to get slow motion footage of it. I want to see the sweat bounce and like splash on the face. Like let's get it like frame by frame, please.
How have we been doing this for 6 years with comments?
I don't even know how I've been talking for the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, I know.
I think we're all
letting you go because I want to see where this.
Yeah,
is
we're all pretty. we're all drinking. So
yeah, that's right.
That's right. But look, it's May. The season is almost here, believe it or not, and it's going to be fantastic. So, this team, they made a lot of good moves in the draft, free agency. They're being really smart with their cap space. Obviously, we're all biting our nails waiting for June 1st to roll around so we can see what happens. The rumors gonna be flying out like crazy. Yep. Hopefully it will be Christmas and it's not gonna be like, we're just sitting there like, okay, well, any moment now, and then we're waiting for 3 weeks, like David said. But yeah, so I'm excited. It's a cautious optimism. There's a lot of good things that the team has going for them. And I'm not going into the season saying that just because I'm a Broncos fan. I'm going to because there's, you look at the numbers, you look at the players on this roster, you look at the coaching staff, you look at the new GM. There's a lot of positivity and a lot of good things to look forward to with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a fun summer, guys. Obviously, we'll be with you if you have some if there's any news to share with you regarding the quarterback situation or anything else. Otherwise, we've got some fun trivia shows planned. We've got some folks coming on to talk Broncos with you. Watch this space. There's going to be a ton to see.
Watch MySpace.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to be posting a ton of stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard of this social media platform. It's called MySpace. You can put your top 8 friends in a row so that people can see. So those top 8 spots are going to fill up fast, guys. We're going to have some sort of competition to see who gets those amongst our fans. But yeah, stay tuned for all of that.
All right. Is that your closing thoughts, David?
That was it. That's all I've got.
All right,
I couldn't possibly
John.
improve on that.
Yeah,
John, what you got?
closing thoughts. Back to the draft. This is the post-draft show. I think it kind of went, kind of how I expected it, and we talked about this last week. It wasn't anything super flashy. There were some really good moves here and there, all very good value picks in my opinion. So I think it's kind of how we can expect, or what we can expect from George Paton. Moving forward, I think what happens at right tackle is going to be the big thing to see how this is kind of Peyton's first adversity in my mind, and it'll be interesting to see how he feels that. But but to echo what you guys are saying, very excited. Broncos are making, I think, really good, smart moves, not selling the farm for people that have question marks. So we'll see what happens with Rodgers. That again, we'll be talking about it for the next month before anything potentially could even happen in the first place.
Absolutely. And then for me, first of all, Rob, I'll hit you up. I got you back. I'm gonna see if I can get out to Oceanside and bring you a visor because that's what you really need. And secondly, we're here. We're here. We've been here for 6 years. We're going to be here for the next 6 years, and we're going to be here for the following 6 years. No matter how terrible we think we are, we're going to be here day in and day out. And I think that's the best part about us and the best part about Broncos country. I think we're going to stay. We want to win the AFC. I think there was some conversation going on earlier, like, why is everybody getting so mad at everybody? Like, we all want to win. We do, but we also have to understand that we're sitting on the couch watching our team play and not making the big bucks and being held accountable for the decisions that are made. So look, I love Broncos country. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And I think going on forward, I think we have a great team. We have a great roster on paper. And I do think we are probably one of the biggest underdogs going into this season as far as the rest of the NFL is concerned. People are going to write us off going into games, even with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater quarterback. And we're still going to be super competitive, if not blowing people out of the water as we go into it. And if we don't, then we'll start over and we'll do it again next year. And that's the joy of the NFL, right? Like, we're going to be here 6 more years. 6 more years. Yeah, so let's do this. But yeah, and then if we don't, we start over and we go back to it again. And guess what? We're all still here because we're all Broncos fans, and we love the Broncos, and that's what we do. And we'll go with that. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Fun stuff.
And
As
always,
go Broncos.
Oh, is that okay? As always, we end off with a
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Take care, everyone.
Do what I like, yeah, I do what I like, yeah, I do what I like. Sipping goose, if it's right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I